Dum, 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 dum. Uh-oh. Hey there. So this video is about how I clean, rinse, and dry my counterflow chiller. I was tired of flushing out the counterflow chiller with a garden hose sprayer and then rotating the equipment around and relying on gravity to drain out all the water. Also, the only way to use a cleaning solution to clean the counterflow chiller was to either submerge the equipment into a large bucket or pour the cleaning solution into the counterflow chiller with a funnel. So, I came up with another way to clean the counterflow chiller using a flush mixer. Now, originally I had a Grainfather counterflow chiller which has the wort and the water tubing permanently installed, and I would use the flush mixer to clean the counterflow chiller through its permanently installed wort tube. However, if you've seen my video on how I modified the Grainfather counterflow chiller, you know that I solved my issue with the permanently installed tubing by adding quick disconnects so that I could remove the tubing and hang them up to dry. However, the process to clean and rinse the Grainfather counterflow chiller stayed the same because I would still clean the counterflow chiller through the wort tubing. You also know from my video that when I rearranged my equipment in my little brewery here, I replaced the Grainfather counterflow chiller with a different counterflow chiller because I needed the wort and the water connections to be on the same side. However, regardless of which counterflow chiller I used, the setup and the process to clean, rinse, and dry the counterflow chiller stayed the same. So let's go through the list of materials and the equipment that I used. Now, the cleaning material that I use are the Keg and Carboy cleaning tablets. You can pick these up at your local homebrew store or get them on Amazon, or you could just use your PBW or favorite keg cleaner. The equipment that I use, how'd that get there? The equipment that I use is a boat engine flush mixer with a liquid flow valve, which is usually used to flush out an inboard or outboard boat engine. You can pick up one of these on Amazon for about $10 and it comes with a quick disconnect. However, I found the quick disconnect that came with the flush mixer to be completely useless because it leaks all over the place. Therefore, I installed a better designed 3/4 inch garden hose quick connector fitting, which worked out fine. You can get a value pack of 4 fittings on Amazon for about $12. Now, if you don't want to use a quick disconnect fitting, the flush mixer can connect directly to a garden hose spray gun if the spray gun has a threaded front. However, for my application, I wanted the flexibility of using the flush mixer to also clean my beer lines and taps, so I chose to install a quick disconnect. More on that later. For the output, I installed a 3/4 inch garden hose thread that's GHT coupling to a threaded 1/2 inch female iron pipe that's FIP adapter, and then a threaded 1/2 inch male iron pipe that's MIP to a 3/8 inch hose barb adapter. I got these two items at my local home improvement store for around $5. Next, let's go through the setup. So, setup is rather straightforward. The flush mixer is connected to a water source, and the 3/8 inch barb is inserted into the wort input hose, which is then connected to the counterflow chiller. Now, for my setup, I installed a CPVC multi-turn stop and waste valve in line so that I can control the water pressure. Controlling the water pressure is important because I don't want to have to install a hose clamp to prevent the wort input hose from blowing off the 3/8 inch barb, and I don't want the discharge of trapped wort and cleaning solution shoot all over the place. Now, if you're using a garden hose spray gun for your water source, I recommend adjusting the flow control knob on the back of the spray gun to the preferred water pressure before you connect it to the flush mixer. Okay, now we're ready to start cleaning and rinsing the counterflow chiller. So, I unscrew the mixing jar from the flush mixer and I put in 1 keg cleaning tablet or maybe a couple of tablespoons of PBW into the jar, and then I screw the jar back onto the flush mixer. I then make sure that the mixing valve knob is set to the water only position. And then I connect the flush mixer to a water source. I then connect the input and output tubes to the counterflow chiller, and I connect the input tube to the 3/8 inch barb and put the other end of the output tube into the sink or into a bucket. I then slowly turn the water on so that I can discharge any trapped wort in the tubing or in the counterflow chiller. When the water discharge is clear, I turn the mixing valve to the number 1 position and mix the cleaner to make a cleaning solution. After about 30 seconds, I turn the mixing valve to the water only position and let it rinse for about 30 seconds. I then turn the water source off and I move on to drying the counterflow chiller. Now, as you know, no matter how much you twist and turn the counterflow chiller around to get the water out, there's still that potential for some trapped water inside the wort and water pipes. So, what I do is I use my handheld Ryobi compressor to push the water out. For the wort side of the counterflow chiller, I insert a piece of thick-walled silicone tubing with a 5/16 inner diameter and a 1/2 inch outer diameter, which has an inflatable adapter inserted into it. For the water input side, I connect a 3/4 inch to 1/2 inch swivel adapter with a 3/8 inch hose barb, piece of silicone tubing, and an inflatable adapter. Now, both of these hook up to the Ryobi compressor, like that. So, this will get most of the water out of the counterflow chiller. However, for the final step, I'll connect a couple of 1/4 inch barbs to the outputs to create a Venturi effect to get the last bit of water out. Now, once I assembled these adapters, I found it to be an easy process to install them, dry the counterflow chiller, and then remove them. But since the compressor makes a lot of noise, I'll take a video of the drying process and then do a voiceover to explain the step-by-step procedures. So, as they say, let's get her done. After cleaning and rinsing the counterflow chiller, I remove the wort input and output hoses and hang them up to dry. I then connect the 2 adapters to the wort and water input fittings. I connect the air compressor to the wort input fitting and turn the compressor on and look for water coming out of the wort output. I then repeat the process for the water input. I then install the 1/4 inch barbs to the output fittings. I wrap a piece of Velcro around the compressor trigger so the compressor can run continuously, and I lift and move the counterflow chiller around to dislodge any trapped water inside. I briefly block and then unblock the output with my finger. This increases the pressure inside, which helps shoot the last remaining water out. I then connect the compressor to the water input and repeat the process. Again, lifting and moving the counterflow chiller around helps the compressor blast out any trapped water. I unwrap the Velcro strap to turn the compressor off, disconnect the input and output fittings, and I'm done. No more trapped water. So, that's how I dry the counterflow chiller. It's quick and easy, and of course, consuming large quantities of coffee helps too. Now, since I only have one fermenter, it's usually several weeks before the next brew day. So it's important to me that the water doesn't sit inside the counterflow chiller and potentially cause corrosion inside the equipment. Now, on brew day, I always make it a point to fill up my boiler with a couple of liters more than I need. After I reach my strike temperature, I lower the mash volume in the boiler down to the desired level by pumping the excess water out through the pump, the discharge pipe, the wort input hose, the counterflow chiller, the wort output hose, and into a bucket, just to make sure that I clean these items before I use them. Also, I always sanitize my counterflow chiller on brew day by running boiling wort through the counterflow chiller at the end of the boil. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Oh yeah, that's right. Earlier in the video, I said that I installed a quick disconnect so that I could periodically use the flush mixer to clean my beer lines and taps. Well, here's the attachment to do that. Go ahead, make my day. But you'll have to watch my video on how I use the flush mixer to clean my beer lines and taps, and how I put this attachment together, and the setup and the process that I used. It's really easy. I think you'll like it. So, that's it. If you have any comments or questions on cleaning the counterflow chiller, let me know.